I wanted to go through and figure out who were the least hated Hawthorn players of all time, which is very different to the most loved, by the way. But who were the guys that may be non-superstars or forgotten stars that were hated by no one, just had the ultimate respect from Hawthorn fans for doing their job in an amazing way? And I want to give a shout out to Daz Sr., who helped me with some former names. I had some ideas, but I wasn't alive to watch them. He had a better idea of Hawthorn fans during that time, so he helped me put a list together of some of the former guys as well. So let's do this, and comment below who your favourite either role player or your favourite player that everyone loved down below. So in putting this list together, I needed to start with the three-peat of that 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 era, if you will. Which Hawthorn player, from a non-superstar point of view, was loved by every single Hawthorn fan? That's Liam Shiels. Pup was the epitome of why this list exists, because no one disliked Liam Shiels. And if you did, what's wrong with you? That's kind of the theme of the video. He did everything that was asked for him. Run with player, bottom of the pack. He had it all covered. He was a tackler, heart, soul, body, blood, sweat, tears, brought it all in what was honestly a really good jump number. I'm obsessed with jumper numbers, if you don't already know this about me. But the number 26 for a scroungy midfielder, that hits me where I live. Liam Shiels, everyone loved Pup, and so they bloody should have. Darren Pritchard is also going to make his way onto this list. What former Hawks do you think would thrive in the modern game? And from those guys in the 80s, there are a lot of guys you could go with, but I think Darren Pritchard is one that no one would really talk about that would absolutely flourish. The league is crying out for and has quality wingmen. The Hawks have got definitely one in Massimo D'Ambrosio. Pritchard would suit that to a T, and in the 1989 Final Story doco that I think I've watched about 403 times, there is something to be said about, as the most physical grand final of all time, and best, was going on, Hawthorn's game plan in the last 10 minutes as everything began to shut down was give the ball to Pritchard and Dean Anderson, who should have played more games so we can have Noah, but that's another thing, and just hope that he can run with it. An absolute machine, did his job every week, and considering the other winger of the time, Dipper, was a Brownlow medalist, he quietly went about his business in a really professional way, and one of my favourites when I go and watch old Hawthorn videos and games back. I want to include someone here that had to be loved as much as he was because of, well, an unfortunate moment, and that's Trent Croad. Think about it. In the modern Twitter sphere, YouTube sphere, I'll throw myself under the bus here. If we, in that Geelong prelim of last year, if someone, Josh Battle would be a really good example, not only because they both wore the number 24, but both backmen. Josh Battle's a beautiful kick at goal. Crody just wanted to kick the crap out of everything, but I think the analogy works beautifully. But if Josh Battle hit the post with about a minute and a half left, I think it was even less than that on the clock, I apologise, he would be absolutely battered by fans, by the public, by the media, all of those kinds of things. It would be hard to come back from that in a significant way. Now, that was Crody's last game as a Hawk in Phase 1, because he, alongside Luke McFarlane, was sent to Freo, and we got the picks for Hodgie and Sam Mitchell, so we'll give that a massive tick. Again, Crody was a swingman before swingmen were really a thing. I think Peter Schwab kind of goes under the radar in that way, because he and Jade Rawlings were both guys that could go down back and could go forward and contribute in a significant way. I mean, even someone like Jonathan Hay, who was All-Australian in 2001, was still kicking a goal or two, just streaming off the back line. That 0-1 side is really, really fun. The highlights are on YouTube, and you should be absolutely watching them as often as you can. But so not only did Crody do that, we then got him back. He was part of a premiership team. The last thing he did on the football field as a player was he tried to bowl over Joel Selwood with a broken foot. I think we can end the analysis here. Brendan Whitecross is the epitome of just footy life not being fair. Daniel Menzel for the Cats is a really good example of this, and an abundance of players that have gone through injury-riddled careers. And a little bit like Liam Shiels, Whitey just seemed to do his job always, and his body just unfortunately didn't hold up. The 2013 prelim, I think, is the one that is heartbreaking the most because it happened in a freaking prelim. And he was playing pretty well in that game, was doing a job as he did every single time. And when you grow up, your formative teenage, early adult years of loving this football club, you tend, I think, sometimes, especially in my case, to sort of hold those premiership players in a regard and maybe disregard the non-flag players, which is something that I don't love about myself, but I'm trying to be honest here. But granted, if I could change one thing about the three-peat, and I don't know who to take a medal off, and that's what makes this disgusting to sort of say, but man, I wish Brendan Whitecross had got a premiership medal. Winning a Norm Smith medal is something that is really, really amazing. Now, you consider the guys, if we go in reverse chronological order, Cyril, Hodgie twice, Brian Lake, Paul Deere, rest in peace, Gary Ayres twice, of course. Gary Ablett Sr. won it in 89, so no one won it then. And then you kind of go, oh, yeah, Colin Robertson won one as well in 1983. Played less than 180 games of footy, and from what Daz Senior loves to say, and granted, I've only watched the 1983 grand final and not a lot else of Colin Robertson, if I'm being honest. I know the name, I know the history, but a clever player who averaged just a tick under 18 disposals per game, which, if you correlate it to the amount of footy that he's won today, is just under 20 and a half touches. So for his era, found the footy a bunch and wasn't an unpopular choice. His 1983 final series was genuinely ridiculous, averaging 27 disposals, and had 29 on that fateful day against the Bombers when we absolutely wiped them. Forever a Hawthorn immortal? Rarely mentioned. Sometimes it can be hard to build a legacy of your own, whether it's, say, an uncle or a dad or a brother that has dominated at AFL level for a significant period of time. However, Mick Moncrieff actually went through one of the weirdest legacy-building careers of all time, because if you took his career and gave it to someone else at another club, like if Mick Moncrieff was not a Hawthorn player, but everything else about his career stayed the same, he would be seen as an immortal and an arguable podium guy in terms of the best tall forwards in that club's era. Now, again, that's not going to count for all of them, but it is going to be a hard case to push for half a dozen clubs, if we're being honest. Like, you've got Lockett, you've got Nick Riewoldt. If Mick Moncrieff was a St Kilda player, you would argue that he would be third on that list. Whereas for the Hawks, he was stuck between Hutto and Dunstall. Do you understand that? It's kind of like going, here is a free car, being Hutto. Here is winning the lottery, which is Dunstall. And then Mick Moncrieff in the middle is like, here is a really good rental house at an affordable price. You would take that every single day of the week. But between those other two things, you would kind of go, okay, it's probably the third best thing that's happened to me this week. Like, it's kind of ridiculous and unlucky, I suppose, of how you can just be wedged in between two absolute champions, not only of the club, but of the league itself. And I feel like underrated works. But in terms of, again, what you would want out of your prototypical tall forwards, and again, post even Dunstall, Franklin, Roughhead, and again, for younger guys, Gunston, as well, in terms of who's thought about more, but that's more recency bias than probably talent, if we're being completely honest. But Mick Moncrieff is just the guy, I think, he's probably the best player forward of the ball that barely gets discussed about his own supporters. And also at the time, again, he had to wedge that gap between two champions and did so in an amazing way. Over 600 goals. What a player. If you hate anyone that kicks over 600 goals for your club, you're off your head. But to finish this list, I wanted to go the current list. Who is the current player on Hawthorn's list that is impossible to hate? And that for me is Jarman Impey. Not because of the bias, but just because he's a freaking star of a bloke as well. Really good player, more versatile than he gets credit for. Should have won a best and fairest before he did his ACL in 2019. Jars is just that guy. In an era where we're told that people can't really celebrate goals, Guinea, Nick Watson, Connor McDonald get, not in trouble, but cop a little bit of flack for their celebrations. Jarman Impey pulled out the Ronaldo celebration against the Crows and no one said anything, whether it's disgruntled Hawks fans, because it's kind of an okay boomer mentality. If I'm just being honest, guys, if you don't like dudes celebrating, I don't really understand why. But anyway, Jars did that and no one cared, and it was awesome. And that's kind of the energy that he brings. Everything he does turns to gold. A ridiculously incredible human being. And I will go into bat for Jarman Impey. If he has no fans, I'm dead. That's basically where I'm going with this. But they are just a handful and a half of guys at the Hawks that were impossible to hate, even if they didn't reach the superstar status of some of their peers. Now, I will say that there is one player I really wanted to put on this list that is missing, and that's Chris Mew, the boy from Rosebud. But that's because I want to do an entire deep dive just on him. I think he's the most underrated Hawk of all time. So that's why he's not here. But give me your suggestions. Comment below. Let me know. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to join the Daz Talks Footy family. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.